Episode of the Miles Out with Mike Lowry. I got another good one for you today. Today we're going to be talking about bouncing back from disappointment. And I'm not going to be doing it alone. I have a special guest by the name of Ashley. Stay tuned. All right. Well, Ashley, thank you for being on the show. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you? It's a beautiful Saturday in Tampa, Florida. Can't
It
complain.
is. It is. It's nice. It's crazy this weather in December, but I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all. So, well, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so well, first, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be on your channel. I am very appreciative for what you're doing, and I think it's been extremely impactful for everyone that has been tuning in. But I am Ashley, if this is your first time to the channel, and I live in Tampa, Florida. I am a military brat, so grew up in the military. Both my parents were in the Army for like 20 plus years, and I have a background in HR, human resources.
Nice, nice, good, good. Well, I appreciate you. I thank you for being on. This has been a long time coming for us to
Yes.
get together and do this, and we're finally here. So now that I have you here, I wanted to kind of pick your brain and kind of, not drill you, but ask you a couple questions about what you thought about bouncing back from disappointment. Like, have you had experiences? What have you done to overcome those things, and do you still struggle with how to bounce back?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody has had to bounce back from a disappointment. And if you not already bounce back from a disappointment, you're in the middle of trying to bounce back from a disappointment. So I think it can range from a lot of different things, whether that's career wise or whether that's relationship wise or just a disappointment in life, things not going the way that you planned they would
Mhm.
go. But I think the big thing with bouncing back from disappointment, I think one is just kind of acknowledging that the disappointment happened. I think we live in a culture nowadays where it's all about, just move to the next thing, just keep moving, just move to the next thing. And
Right.
hurt people hurt people. So if you haven't actually stopped to bounce back from the disappointment and like acknowledge, okay, this happened, I'm disappointed, it wasn't what I expected, then you really can't actually move forward from there. But you have to like regroup and evaluate, like, why was I so disappointed? What was it that, made me feel a certain way? Or what was it that made me feel like so disappointed and why? And then kind of evaluate like how that affected you and then kind of move from there of, okay, this is what I need to do to get back on my feet. This is what I need to do so that I don't end up in the same situation again.
Absolutely. Like for me, I always look at like, am I disappointed because my expectations were too high, or what were my expectations at all? You know what I mean? As far as that, like I had a situation where I had applied for this job and they had the salary on the thing, this X amount of dollars, and I'm like, okay, like I can make some moves with this, and it's cool. So do the interview, get offered the job, and the salary is nothing like
Wow.
what it said on the site. And so that was extremely disappointing. But what I realized is that at the time, it was still more money than I was making at the time. The benefits were still better than I was making at the time. So I try to find myself finding that disappointment and trying to turn into a positive at some way, even though it wasn't what I was expecting based on my expectation. It was still better than where I was. And so that's what I try
Yeah.
to do sometimes with disappointment, try to learn from it or reevaluate the situation and try to say, okay, like, what was the real reason I'm disappointed? Was my expectation a little too high? So is that kind of the same for you, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you made a really good point. Like, expectation is so important. And I think a lot of the times our disappointment comes from an expectation that we put on ourselves and not necessarily what's coming from, if it's a relationship, on the other person, or just getting in our head and thinking, oh, okay, this is what's going to happen. And I think it's very similar in general, like with our faith. Like, we assume that because God showed up one way in the last season, that he's going to show up the same way in this season, and then we get disappointed if it's not exactly how we thought. And it's like, that's not how it works. Like,
Right.
you can't set your expectation on the other person. You just have to have kind of like be optimistic and have, an open heart to receive, but at the same time realize that 9 times out of 10 is very rarely going to be exactly what you thought.
Absolutely. I mean, they say 90% of what we worry about or think is going to happen never happens anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think we also give like other people too much responsibility for our own expectation. And we're disappointed because they didn't do what we wanted them to do, but they never had it in them to do it to begin with. And so I think
Yeah.
that's more about being aware, understanding the situation that you're currently in. And I think it changes your perception on things. So you're
Mm-hmm.
disappointed. So when you are disappointed, it's not as like, I kind of saw that coming, because I'm a little more aware and understanding like what actually happened. But but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like for
Absolutely.
me too, like I've given like my life like a different perspective now in terms of how I look at disappointment completely. Like I try to like look at stuff ahead versus behind it. And so like if I can train my brain to expect things to me to be disappointed, when I am disappointed, I'm less taken back, by it. It's kind of like, okay, this is life. These are the things that happens. These are growing pains. So it's an experience that I can learn from and kind of move forward through. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like, thinking about expectations and
It's
all of
okay.
that, I think it is definitely, I have learned to just believe and expect the best out of every situation, but also be aware that there are going to be things that are going to happen that are going to be unexpected, that I may have to pivot. And I've learned to just be open and realize, like, sometimes things are going to go a certain way, sometimes things are not going to go a certain way. And if I focus on, like, how I can only, like, you can control two things, like your attitude and how you respond to things. Like, you can't control really anything else. So I really try to focus on, regardless of the outcome of the situation, like, I'm going to believe for the best, but I'm okay with what happens.
Cool deal. So I think like with disappointment, like these are two things that I use to like really help me with overcoming disappointment. So what I realize is that in life there are things that may appear to be negative, but I've learned that in every negative there's always a positive if I look hard enough. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I can name like 100 different situations. Like I remember getting in a car accident once, and I totaled my car, and it was like, man, this is crazy. I can't believe this happened. And then I'm getting a better car, a newer car, where a lesser car payment. And I was like, okay, now I see the positive in what I thought initially was like so wrong and detrimental to the situation or what have you. The other thing with disappointment is I try to use it like just as an experience. And I realized that, the perception of what happened is only as bad as I perceive it to be. So it may not even really be that bad. It's, based on my perception of it. Somebody else can look at it and be like, "You tripping over that? It's not that serious." So you got anything that you use to kind of help with disappointment or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is expecting that it's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
like, and realizing that in any situation, like, things happen, and I think for me, especially when it comes to, like, relationships, because I would say outside of, like, the little small things with life, it's major disappointment has really just come from relationships and things not panning out the way that I thought. And so what I've learned is just that in disappointment, it's going to happen, but, like, every successful person, every person that is thriving in life found a way to make good out of that situation and found a way to, like, dig their heels in and to grow. And so I really try to evaluate the situation from, like, a holistic perspective and say, okay, this may have happened. that, and it wasn't expected, but what are the great things that happen as a result of this situation? Like, did I grow professionally? Did I grow spiritually? Did I just grow better as a person? Did I get stronger? Did I, have a better zeal for what I want and like tune into that? So I think kind of having a heart of gratitude and just understanding like this situation could have been worse, but here's the great things that came out of this situation helps me to like refocus and have the right perspective on the situation, because disappointment is going to come no matter who you are.
Absolutely. I think I'm gonna leave the people with the idea of like disappointment could literally be a redirection. A no could really be a yes in a different area. Maybe you weren't made to go here and you're upset about it, but then you're supposed to go here and be elevated over here. If you're not disappointed in this area, then you'll settle here. And then instead of being disappointed here, you can be elevated over here. Because I've been in situations, myself, where I feel like the pandemic taught me where, let me get out on my creative side and do something different. But if it wasn't for the pandemic, I probably wouldn't have gotten, into my creative space. So in finding that disappointment, the world shutting down and things happening, unexpected, I know a lot of people have found a lot of peace, a lot of goodness, all the above, just from what they thought was a disappointment initially. Yeah. You got anything you want to leave people?
Leave the people.
Yeah.
I think the big thing is know that disappointment will come. And people say all the time, the situations that were meant to break you are really the ones that build you. And I think if you have the mindset when you go into any situation in your life that this is going to make me better, I cannot control the outcome. I can only control my attitude and how I respond to it. I think you will bounce back a lot faster in your life, because like you said, Mike, setbacks are usually a redirection or a protection from something you didn't even realize you needed protecting from.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate everything you do each and every day and being a part of this wonderful channel that's taking off. And thank you. Thank you so much.
You are extremely welcome. And you guys better like, subscribe, share it with everybody you know, and share with Mike exactly what you want him to talk about, because this channel is just getting started.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes another episode of The Mind's Eye with Mike Lowry. I want to thank Ashley for taking her time out to come on the show and talk about, what it means to bounce back from disappointment. If you guys could, in the comments, drop some tips, some things that you guys might do to bounce back from disappointment. And if there's anything else that you guys want to talk about in particular that you want me to share or, touch on, please put it in the comments. With that being said, I appreciate you guys. Don't forget to like, share, comment. See you soon.